Hello, my name is Matthias and welcome to the FPL Scope and my team selection video for game week 29, which is going to be the first blank game week of the season, which is going to be really interesting, and there's a lot of things to get through. Not only am I going to talk about my game week 28 score, I'm also going to talk about the free hit score from game 28. I'm going to have a free hit draft for game week 29 as well, which is much anticipated because game week 29 is a pretty popular game week for free hitters, especially. We're also going to look at the manager of the week from this past game week 28, and look at their plans for game week 29 as well. And then we're finally going to talk about my own team and my own plans for game week 29, which are kind of interesting. I actually have two different variations that I'm considering currently with the free transfers that I have available to me. So let's just start with game week 28, which was another meh game week, not a disaster, but again, not the best either. I basically had the captain's points from Salah was obviously amazing, but not that many people went away from Salah as captain. At least I didn't have Palmer captain because he only got 1 point while Salah got 15 points. So that's a 14-point swing there between the two. But other than Salah, it was basically just Munoz once again getting points there in my defense with a clean sheet, 6 points for him. And Kluivert getting an assist and being a bit unlucky with disallowed goals and all that stuff. Kluivert and a big chance missed as well. Munoz also had a big chance missed, by the way. He could have had a massive score in his game as well. But apart from that, didn't really get any points at all either, not even for my transfer. I sold Gakpo and I was really close to buying Marmoush, but then finally, right as I was going to confirm the transfer, I just checked Twitter and just made sure that I had gotten every single team leak potentially before the game week, and that was right at the time where the leaks came out that Marmoush was not starting. So I guess I was kind of happy in the end that I went for Beto, because I'm not too enthused about Marmoush now. I would rather go with someone else from City if I go for a City player this next game week. But at the same time, Marmoush got 1 point, Beto got 2 points. Didn't really hurt me or help me in any way that much for this game week at least. So yeah, that was pretty much my game week. I have a couple of interesting things to do for game week 29, which we'll get to eventually. But first, let's take a look at my free hit draft for game week 28 and see if that did better or worse than my own team, because that's sometimes not as easy as it looks. And as we can see from the game week 28 free hit draft that I made this past game week, going into game week 28, it ended up with the exact same amount of points as my own team, 54 points. Pretty similar team, to be honest. This team had Marmoush rather than Beto, for example. Pretty similar across the board, so not really that surprising to see it also get a similar score of 54 points as well. So I've done this all throughout the season, made free hit drafts for each and every game week, and accumulatively the points that I've gotten from those free hits have been 1,935 points in total, which will give me a rank of around 51k overall. But you also have to keep in mind this is without triple captain, without assistant manager, without all that stuff as well. So but even still, it is tough to make free transfers and have the best possible team every single game week. That's why free hitting is kind of difficult, and why I know I prefer free hitting in game weeks that are either blank game weeks or double game weeks. And most likely, I do prefer using the free hitting in a blank game week, because that means I can basically just disregard that game week and plan for the game weeks before and after, which is more important to me than the actual score of the one particular game week. But yeah, where this team basically differentiates from my own is pretty much nowhere. It also just had a lot of players blanking overall. Bowen got nothing in his game. Neto got nothing in his game, which was kind of surprising. The Leicester game, both Palmer and Neto blanking. Did not expect that. I should note, however, on the bench I have Cucurella with 15 points. He got 15 points in game 27, and I got 15 points in 28 as well. 2 game weeks in a row where he scores and doesn't concede against bad teams. Interesting to say the least when it comes to Cucurella, who's been a very fringe FPL pick, but there's definitely a case to be made for him to be in your squad, because he keeps getting forward, and Chelsea are looking a bit better defensively now, even though they're looking a bit worse offensively as well as the season has progressed, basically. But yeah, 54 points, a gaming rank of around 6 million, which is not ideal, obviously. Could be done a lot better. So let's take a look at the manager that had the best score from this past game week and who is now featured as the manager of the week. And that is none other than Freddy Andreasen, who is a fellow Norwegian guy, as I can tell from his FPL profile. He managed to get 86 points. Some of it is down to the fact that he did use bench boost, which I'm not quite sure if I would have done the same. I've said before, though, maybe you've seen my videos, Freddy, and you've seen me talk about how, if you just find a decent game week to bench boost in, just do it, because I don't really like the bench boost chip that much. And to be fair, you did get a lot of points from your bench boost, with Enzo 6 points, Aina 6 points, Kirkus with 4 points, and Flecken with 3. With my quick maths, that is 19 points, which is not too bad on a bench boost, but you also did 3 free transfers to get this bench boost going. So you did Valdimarsson to Flecken, 3 points there from the bench boost. Cunha to Strand Larsen, 1 point there. Not really that much. And Woodfors to Aitnouri, which actually cost you 1 point. Which was the same points, 2 points for each, basically. So yeah, I think you could have done without it. I think you could have saved the bench boost for a different game week later on in the season. And you could have just not done the transfers, basically, if you had Valdimarsson benched, Cunha benched, and Woodfors benched. I probably would have just benched Aina as well, which would have been 6 points lost, I guess. So you gained some points from doing the bench boost that I would have lost if I was in charge of your team this past game week. But all in all, 86 points. The differences from my team, especially, is the fact that you have Henderson in goal with 10 points. That's more points than Munoz got. And Henderson is someone that I'm really annoyed that I didn't go for rather than going with Kepa Arrizabalaga, because Kepa has been awful for me. I forgot to mention that in the GW28 part for my own team, but I actually sold. I had Robert Sanchez from Chelsea from game week 6 all the way up until like game week 24 or something. Then I sold him for Kepa because Kepa was playing and Sanchez had lost his place with the Chelsea team. But now Sanchez actually got to play this past game week and got a clean sheet. So Sanchez has actually outscored Kepa since I bought Kepa in for Sanchez. So that just tells you something about my goalkeeper luck. So I wish I had Henderson, who got 10 points for Freddy Andreasen as the manager of the week. Also had Bruno Fernandes with 9 points against Arsenal. Bruno Fernandes, who is going to be much more talked about in this video as well, because I think he's a pretty interesting player for game week 29 in particular. And also the Salah 30 points as well. That was basically the brunt of the points, including the bench boost, where Enzo got a nice assist as well. So yeah, all in all, good game week, taking you up to 790k overall, which is pretty close to where your best rank is from game week 20 or from the 2021-22 season. We ended up 490k. You've been pretty consistently within the 1 million basically the past 4 years, and I think you can finally beat your best rank as well. And get closer to the 100k mark if you play your cards right, because you have some really nice chips left. You have assistant manager left, which is going to be really nice, and you also have free hit left and wildcard left. I don't think you should use any of those chips the next game week, but we'll look into your team now for this next upcoming game week and see what I would do for game 29. And the positive part, at least, from your transfers that have made your bench boost possible is the fact that you now have 11 players already ready to play for this game week. Like, you have a really solid team already. So for me, I think the best option is just to stand pat. Like, I can't really see any move being worth a transfer because you get 4 more points. I think you have the 2 second best or third, like the 3 out of the 4 best captain's options you have in Fernandes, Kluivert, and Wood. And there's no easy way for you to get Haaland. You could potentially do like a Palmer downgrade to Elanga, Strand Larsen or Isak up to Haaland type of move, but honestly, I don't think there's that much between Haaland, Wood, Fernandes, and Kluivert in terms of captaincy this week. So personally, I would go with a punt of Bruno Fernandes as captain. I think that's a bit of a rogue shout, but yeah, I'm going to talk more about that with my own team as well as a potential move. So yeah, I really like the Fernandes shout against Leicester, and I also quite like the team in general as well. Like, you have pretty solid players. Your defenders, pretty close to ideal defenders, even though my free hit team, as you'll see pretty soon, for Game 29 is a bit different than this. This has a lot of good players, like not many weak links in this team at all, basically. I think it's just Enzo, Arsenal away. Apart from him, I think everyone else could score decently this game week. I don't mind this team at all. Maybe Flecken against Bournemouth away as well isn't the best goalkeeper, but Aitnouri and Strand Larsen against Southampton, it's against Southampton, so it's really nice. The Bournemouth players against Brentford at home, I think that's nice. Kirkus has been good lately in terms of attacking points. Kluivert is fantastic. Palmer against Arsenal. Palmer has been in terrible form, and it is Arsenal away, a really tough game, but it is still Palmer at the end of the day, a penalty taker for Chelsea in a London derby. Like, he could easily score points there as well. Aina is good as always. He's going to be one of the more coveted defenders to have in this game. This game week, Robinson is usually pretty good and attacking, playing against Spurs, which is not the best team. So all in all, I think your team is really solid looking. Chris Wood, obviously, who's going to be one of the most captain players this game week as well. He's also really, really good and someone that most people are looking to get this game week. So I think you're in a really good position, not only with the chips that you have left, but also with the 3 free transfers, which will be 4 free transfers if you do what I say for this game week and just stand pat with your team and just play it as it is. You could go with Wood as captain if you want to prefer to do that and basically just make sure that you get those Wood points potentially. He is the more safe captaincy choice, I think, but I think Bruno Fernandes might have the higher ceiling. I'm talking as someone that did captain Bruno Fernandes. The one time I've captained Bruno Fernandes these past 2 seasons was at home against Leicester, and he got 17 points that game week, 34 as my captain. So I kind of like that move in general, but you could play it safe with Wood instead. Makes more sense. He is high likelihood of scoring at least 1 goal against Ipswich. I feel like this is a typical 1-0 Wood game-winning game for Nottingham Forest, as they've shown in the past, which would be perfect for you with Aina and Wood. So in your case, maybe you want to go with Wood as captain rather than Fernandes, but personally, I think Fernandes is the more enticing captaincy choice this game week, as I'll talk about with my own team as well, potentially later down the line. But yeah, just save your transfer. You'll have 4 free transfers, and I think you're in the same position as me, where you want to use your assistant manager chip between game week 31 and 33, which means that the best game week for you to wildcard is game week 30. So that's what I would do if I was in your position, and you're basically in the same position as me in terms of your wildcard and assistant manager strategy. So again, you'll have like an easy choice when it comes to what to do with your team if you want to follow my lead at least, because I'm going to do the same. I'm going to wildcard in game week 30 and assistant manager between game week 31 and 33. Very much likely, or wildcard game week 30 is like pretty much locked for me. So yeah, you can just watch for next week's content as well, or the game week 30 content, and you'll see what I would suggest for game week 30 on a wildcard with the chips that you have left. Obviously, you've used bench boost. I haven't, but like I've said previously as well, I don't really plan on using bench boost. Like, I don't plan for using the bench boost, basically. I'm just going to use it whenever it feels right. So you don't really have to take that much into consideration either. So I think you're in a pretty good spot in general for the rest of the season. I think your team is looking pretty good. And I think you have some enticing options there if you want to go against the Haaland thing. I personally, I would not go for Haaland if I was in your shoes. And you'll see more of that when it comes to my own team and what I might do for this game week, as we'll get to pretty soon. But before we get to my team, let's take a look at the free hit draft. Or before we get to the free hit draft, actually, let's just remind you, if you want to be in the manager of the week, like Freddie Andreasen just was right now, you can join the FPL Scope Mini League with the league code hpxeri. And if you have the highest score in one particular game week, you'll get featured on a video or on the FPL Scope podcast, like Freddie Andreasen just was right now. So with that out of the way, let's go into the free hit draft for GW29, which is pretty interesting because GW29 is one of the more common free hit weeks, especially for those that don't really play the game like super seriously. If you are free hitting this week and you're just searching up on YouTube, if you're not looking at free hit drafts usually, this could be a good pinpoint for you in terms of what team you should have for GW29. And I think also GW29 free hits, it's also just nice because a lot of people are going for players for like a really short-term window, because a lot of people are looking to wildcard in Game Week 31 or Game Week 30 like myself. And then Game Week 29 is going to be a pretty important game week to nail the right players and right picks. So I'm going to go through the team that I have for Game Week 29, the free hit draft that I have selected, basically just talk about it and why I've selected each and every player. So starting with the defense, we have the goalkeeper and Mazraoui, Onana and Mazraoui from Man United, both of them against Leicester. And the main reason that I really like them, Mazraoui I'll get very much into later, but yeah, in general, just Leicester are just awful offensively. They've scored in 2 games in 2025 in the league. That was against Spurs, which is the team that like loses sometimes randomly against like Leicester teams like that, and Aston Villa, 2 teams that are kind of erratic and can lose in any particular game. Man United are also a team like that, to be fair, so I wouldn't be too surprised to see them concede, but at the same time, Leicester have just been awful offensively lately in 2025. So I think there's a high likelihood of a clean sheet, so I think Onana is like the best goalkeeper to have for this game week, especially when you consider the other teams that I've already tripled up on as well with this draft as well. So yeah, but when it comes to Mazraoui, I think he's actually my favorite defender, even like differentials. Like even if you wanted to select just one defender to have this game week, I think Mazraoui might be the one for me because he looked really, really good against Arsenal, had a really huge chance, was super attacking. He's going to play as right wing back, most likely, like more than likely, because Patrick Dorgu is out suspended for Game 29 as well. So that means Dalot moves over to the left wing back spot, and Mazraoui plays at the right wing back spot, which he looked really nice in against Arsenal. And Man United as well looked a lot better against Arsenal than they have been in the past. Could just be like a blip on the radar. Maybe they're back to their terrible self again, but it is Leicester. It is a really nice game for them to just really show that they are a really, really nice team to have for this game week. So yeah, I think Mazraoui is fantastic. He could score. He could get clean sheets. or a clean sheet at least, one clean sheet. He's not going to get multiple clean sheets, sadly, because he plays only one game. But I think that game is the best game to target, considering Leicester are just awful. Like I said, 2 games they've scored in 2025. They rarely score, and that's since like game week 19. Like that's like almost 10 game weeks where they've given the other team a clean sheet in 8 out of those 10 game weeks, or something like that, like close to that at least. So that is really good odds in my opinion, and also with how attacking Mazraoui looked last game week against Arsenal, which is a much better team than Leicester. I think he's just a no-brainer for a defender, and he's so cheap as well, like 4.3. Even if you're not on a free hit, I think he's a really, really good pick this game week. So really advise all of you guys, whether you're on a free hit or not, to pick Mazraoui, because I think he's really, really good. Then we have Olaina. I think if you have free reign over who to choose from Nottingham Forest, you don't really need to worry about money. I think Olaina, the most expensive defender and most points-heavy defender so far this season, is the one to go with. But I've told you before as well in videos, when I do the wildcard draft, I do prefer Nico Williams, who's like a full million cheaper and plays every single game as well. He's not really a rotation risk. He's gotten more points than Aina the last like 12 game weeks or so as well. Like he's really good form in general, but Aina just is like the safer pick. He's been the better bonus point magnet this season. He's also going to play 100% for sure. Like we have there's no hesitation about him starting. Nico Williams has been a bit more in and out of the team throughout the season, but he's been really consistently playing for the last like 10, 15, 20 almost game weeks now as well. So yeah, but Aina, fantastic player. He could get forward and get a goal like he has done in the past this season and get those 15 pointers, which we've seen from him this season. So I think he's a really good pick. Guardiola as well. I think he's the best City defender. He's also both a really good attacking defender and he could get a clean sheet against Brighton. I don't like the fixture that much. Man City, like I'm not super sold on it, which I'll get to with my own team and my own transfer plans, but on a free hit, I think that is like one of the teams to target. It is one of the best home games to have at least, and it is Man City, the best team potentially to have currently for this game week, considering Liverpool are not playing and Arsenal are not really with a good game week playing against Chelsea. So Guardiola is my final pick in defense. Then when it comes to the midfield, Bruno Fernandes, I think is, again, a pretty easy player to pick. He's been getting like 9-10 points the last like 3 game weeks, and now he has Leicester, which is the easiest team to play against. Like I mentioned, he got 17 points against Leicester earlier in the season, and he gets most of the goals that Man United score in general. And you would expect him to score against Leicester, especially with how they looked against Arsenal, where they created a lot of chances. They could have had another goal or 2 as well in that game against Arsenal, the best defense in the league, and now they're facing Leicester, potentially the worst team in the league. So Fernandes is looking really, really good. I really like him as a pick. Bowen against Everton, going to keep faith in him as I have done the last few game weeks. He has been like so-so. He's been pretty good some game weeks, okay other game weeks, blank last game week. But I think he's like one of the best options to have, considering we don't really have that many other good options. So yeah, Bowen against Everton away, I think it's a decent player to have. Gibbs White against Ipswich. I really like Gibbs White as a player in FPL. He's been really good and really consistent with the points lately. I think if Wood scores, there's a decent chance that Gibbs White scores. And if Wood doesn't score, I think Gibbs White is the likeliest player to score outside of him for the Nottingham Forest team against Ipswich. It's a really nice fixture for them. Cloyford against Brentford at home. I think that's a really nice game as well. That was a really high scoring game earlier in the season. I think it was 3-2 prior to Brentford potentially against Bournemouth, or it was 3-2 to Bournemouth. But either way, I think that could be a high scoring game as well. So I don't really mind having the Brentford players either, but they are playing away from home and they've been pretty bad away from home this season. So I'd rather back the 2 Bournemouth guys in Cloyford and in Evan Nilsson, who I think is my favorite forward player to have this game week, or forward differential I should say, because Haaland is probably the better pick, and Wood might also be a better pick than Evan Nilsson. But I do quite like Evan Nilsson. Like I don't think it's that much between Evan Nilsson, Wood and Haaland. I think the only like major downside to Evan Nilsson is the fact that he's most likely going to play 70-75 minutes-ish. But at the same time, he's also more differential, so I quite like him as a player for that matter as well. But yeah, he's been really good. He also scored a goal and got 9 points, I think, against Brentford in the previous fixture this season. So I think at home against Brentford, who have been bad away, I think he's also a really easy pick to have. I think the strikers are pretty easy to pick this week in the free hit draft. Wood against Ipswich, going to be a really popular captain pick, going to be in many squads, most squads, basically as well. So yeah, I think he's also a really viable player to go for this game week. Obviously, could also captain him if you really like him, but I don't think the ceiling is that high on him. We've only seen him get like a major haul once this season. That was when they won 7-0 against Brighton. So Yeah, it's a bit tougher for Wood to get like more points. He's usually like a really like low, like not low scoring player, but like a consistent like 9-10 pointer type of guy, rather than someone that gets 2 points and then 17 points, and 2 points and then 15 points, like other strikers can be. Haaland is still the best captaincy option potentially. I think it's the safest captaincy option at least. He's going to be, or I don't know, I don't even know about that, but yeah, he's really good at least. So when you have unlimited money basically on a free hit where you don't need to have Salah taking up most of the funds, and Palmer is playing Arsenal away, which is a tough fixture, you have more than enough money in the bank to have Haaland, and that makes him the best. And with all that in mind, when you have him in the team, I think he is the best captaincy choice. But I don't think it's that much between the captaincy choices this week. Like I said previously on the Manager of the Week, Fernandes, Haaland, Wood, Kluivert. I think it's pretty even between those 4 players. But I think Haaland is the most like secure player. We know how good he is. We know he was the top scorer last season and the season before that as well. And without Salah in the league, he would be the top scorer this season as well by far. So not by far, but by quite a distance, or by a decent amount, I think, in the end this season. So yeah, Haaland, I think he is the best captaincy option, and also like a pretty easy pick to have for a free hit draft in Game 29. But I think by no means is he like a guy you must have for Game 29, or even beyond that as well. I've talked about that in a couple of videos the past few game weeks, that I'm not quite sure if I want to like use that much money on Haaland when there are other captaincy options that are as good or if not better than Haaland currently in FPL. So yeah, he is the final striker and the final player in the Game 29 free hit draft, starting 11 basically. On the bench, Jose Sa against Southampton away. Would usually recommend more Southampton away type, or try to target Southampton more. But I don't really like Wolves that much when they don't have Cunha, so that's the main reason why I haven't really targeted Southampton that much. But Jose Sa, really nice backup goalkeeper to have in case Onana doesn't play. But yeah, I think Jose Sa is a decent pick. But I also wouldn't be too surprised if Southampton score against Wolves, because yeah, Wolves aren't the best defensively either. Phil Foden, just didn't have enough faith in him to start him over Bowen, but I could easily see if you want to do that, if you want to triple up on City, which is like what a lot of people would want to do on a free hit. I could see that as well, but like I said, I don't really think the fixture is like that much of a slam dunk. We never know what to expect from Brighton, and Brighton did beat Man City earlier in the season as well. We saw that not work out, in City's like disfavor earlier in this past game week against Nottingham Forest, because I thought that they beat Nottingham Forest 3-0 early in the season when they were in a really bad form and Nottingham Forest were in really good form. I figured they would do it again last game week, but then Nottingham Forest ended up winning 1-0 against Man City. So yeah, you'd never know what to expect from these fixtures. I wouldn't be too surprised to see City like win like 5-0 or something either. That could happen, and that's why I think ultimately Haaland is the best captaincy choice. But I'm not sure enough about that. I'm not sure enough about them winning at all, even to have Foden in the team over Bowen. But I would not begrudge anyone that had Foden over Bowen either if they wanted to. So yeah, Foden's the first bench player. Second bench player is Aït-Nouri against Southampton away. Again, really good defensive asset, but I just think Guardiola, Aina, and Masraoui are better picks than him. And I do prefer to have as many attacking players as possible on the pitch. So Aït-Nouri is the second match player for that reason, but he is super attacking, plays against a really bad team in Southampton, so could see Aït-Nouri having a good game week as well. And then finally I have Gabriel against Chelsea. I think that's a pretty decent game week. Chelsea scored they did score actually quite a lot of goals against Southampton, but only 1 goal against Leicester. I think Arsenal could keep a clean sheet here, but I'm not really too confident in it. But I do think Gabriel is still a pretty good pick to have for this game week, but yeah, not a good enough to be anything other than third bench in my free hit draft at least. So that's my free hit draft in general. The captaincy is basically up to debate, and there's a lot of other options to talk about when it comes to what to do if you're not on the free hitting Game 29. And that's what I'm gonna end the video with, talking about my own team, my own future plans for this game week, because I have a couple variations, or 2 variations actually, that I want to talk about for my own team. So let's move to that. As you can see from the free draft, I only have 2 out of these 15 players in my own team currently, but I do also have 3 free transfers, as you'll see. So I might bring in some of these players that I have talked about just now in the free drafts selection for Game 29. So these are the plans that I had originally. I'm just going to talk about the transfers first, and then I'm going to talk about the team in general before I move on to the other variation that I'm now considering more. So the first variation that I had, and actually it is a bit different, because I did actually have enough money in the bank to do Trent Alexander-Arnold to Masraoui, who I just talked about how I really like him. But now I don't have enough money to do that if I want to do the Haaland and Fernandes move that I am doing here. So these transfer plans will basically be Palmer downgrade to Fernandes, Trent downgrade to Agbadou, and that would give me enough money to do Cunha to Haaland, and I have Haaland as captain for this game week. That was originally what I was looking to do, and what I might still do. I am still considering it myself, but more and more as time goes on, I kind of want to bet against City in that game, potentially. So yeah, I'm not quite sure about what to do yet, but that is one variation that I can do. But I think the fact that I don't have enough money for Mazraoui now, I'm like 0.2 or 0.1 short now because Bruno Fernandes went up in price. I think I'm more likely to do the second option. But yeah, talking about this option first, Agbadou as well, I think is a decent player to have for Wolverhampton against Southampton away. Like, I think that's a decent fixture for him. So yeah, he could get a clean sheet. He's only 4.0, and like I said previously, I'm going to wildcarding game week 30, so it doesn't really matter who I bring in, and that actually leads me more to the second option that I'm going to talk about pretty soon as well. But Haaland is not part of the second option, and that's why I think this is still in consideration, because I think he might still be the best captaincy option, and I might want to go for him. I do have a pretty decent route to get Haaland and get Fernandes on top of that, which is not what, like, there's not that many other people that can do that, I think. So it is pretty enticing for me. Trent is someone that I would easily sell anyway. It seems like he's injured for a long time now. He blanks. Cunha is also an easy sell because he is suspended. He blanks. Sadly, I was hoping to have him against Southampton in this game week, but that was not meant to be, I guess. And then I could downgrade Palmer to Fernandes as well. And I don't really mind selling Palmer, but I also don't love it either in a game week where there aren't that many secure players to have. I don't really like selling Palmer, but that would have to be done to bring in Haaland, basically. And that's why I'm sort of leaning more towards the second option, which I'm actually going to talk about straight away now. So these are my other potential plans for Game Week 29 that I'm currently leaning towards doing. First of all, I get to do the move that I wanted to do, Trent to Mazraoui, because I have enough money to do the other changes that I wanted to do in this team. The other would be to do Cunha to Kluivert, which is not Kluivert, sorry, Cunha to Evan Nilsson, to get another striker from Bournemouth. And to do that, I would sell Dango for Fernandes instead. Rather than selling Palmer, I would sell Dango, which is a player that is less likely to start, because I don't really feel like Dango's going to start now. He didn't start this past game week where Evan Nilsson was back as a striker, so I'm not too comfortable with him playing 70 plus or 60 plus minutes this game. He's probably going to come on for a cameo of about 20 to 30 minutes against Brentford, and that's not ideal. So I would rather sell him than Palmer if I got the chance to choose out of the two. And with this tactic, I can actually choose to do that. I could also choose to do Cunha to Wood instead. I have the money for that as well, rather than going for Evan Nilsson, and still get Mazraoui and still get Fernandes. I could even get Guardiola, for example, if I want to as well. But I do think, like I previously said, that Mazraoui is the best pick in defense this week. So this is currently what I'm leaning towards doing. I will get Mazraoui, my favorite defender this game week. I will get Fernandes, my favorite midfielder this game week. And while I wouldn't get Palmer, I wouldn't get Haaland for the striker position, I would get Evan Nilsson, who is a more differential player to have this game week. A lot of people are triple up on Bournemouth already and don't have the possibility to do Dango out, for example, like I'm doing. So I think Evan Nilsson is going to be a really nice differential this game week. And I think he's like a pretty good, decent pick. And if I were to do these three transfers, Mazraoui, Kluivert, and Fernandes, I would actually captain Fernandes and go for like a super differential. Most people are going to captain Haaland if they get Haaland, or if they can't afford Haaland, they will captain Wood. But I kind of like going against those two teams in general. I don't have any Nottingham Forest players. I don't have any City players. And I think it's kind of more fun to just go against those teams and hope that they kind of fail. Hope that Brighton and Ipswich can help me a little bit there. And also hope that Man United will show that the promise that they showed against Arsenal is not really just a blip, that they are actually looking pretty good currently. And Fernandes and Mazraoui, I think, can do really well against Leicester in this game week. So, yeah, those are basically my plans. When it comes to the rest of my team, I've kept my own goal against Brentford. I'm pretty certain that he's going to concede, as he usually does. So I wish I had a different goalkeeper, but I can't really worry too much about that. At least I have a playing goalkeeper at least. Trent, going to be sold regardless, like I mentioned. Gabriel, quite like him. I had him in the free drafts for a reason. I do think he's a decent option still. Castani and Spurs as well, I think he's also a decent option. Kenetete is still not back, so Castani is going to play. And Spurs aren't the best team, so I quite like that as well. Mikolenko against West Ham. Looking at how bad West Ham looked against Newcastle, I wouldn't be too surprised if Everton keep a clean sheet. David Moyes against his former team, he probably has some tricks up his sleeve against his former team as well, so wouldn't be too surprised to see Mykolenko get a clean sheet, so I don't mind keeping him either for this game week. Palmer against the Arsenal away, I think he's a decent player to have in general, just because Palmer has been so good in the past for us, but the last 7 or so game weeks he's been pretty bad, so he's not ideal, but at least we know he's going to play 90 minutes, he's going to be on penalties. We have some certainties with him at least, which we can't really say the same for Dongo, for example. But Mbeumo I still pretty much like, just the players that I have currently in the team. I actually would have him as the vice captain, but I do prefer Fernandes and potentially the striker as well, above Mbeumo as the vice captain potentially as well. Kluivert is actually from the players that I have currently in my team. He is my favorite captaincy choice. Like I mentioned, it is Fernandes, Wood, Haaland, and Kluivert, which are the 4 captaincy options this week. And Kluivert is the only one that I have out of those players currently without using any transfers so far. So I quite like him actually. Like I said, I think this will be a pretty high scoring game. Kluivert has been super involved in everything lately. He's getting 70 plus minutes every single game week. He's the penalty taker. He's just looking good in general for Bournemouth. So I think he's like a super valid captain's option if you have him and you don't really want to do anything else. I think Kluivert is a nice differential captain this game week. And then Dango. Not too certain. I don't think he's going to play. He could play. He could get the final like 20 or 30 minutes up front with Evan Nilsson not being able to play 90 minutes yet. But that might also change for Game 29. Maybe Nilsson plays 90 minutes finally now. Maybe he's fit to do that. So maybe Dango doesn't even play at all, which would be a disaster this game week, considering we have no bench depth at all. So I do quite like the idea of selling him and getting Fernandes for him. I think that's a huge upgrade. In general, so that's why I'm leaning more towards these transfer plans than the original transfer plans that I did have previously. Cunha obviously going to get sold. Sad to see him not play. Southampton would have been a nice fixture for him, but yeah, he got suspended stupidly once again, so he's going to be sold for sure. And then Beto against West Ham as well. He's been getting big chances every single game week since he started playing as a striker for Everton. Could see that happening against West Ham as well. So yeah, I think he's a pretty decent option to have in Game 29 on top of that. On the bench, Fabianski, who doesn't play, but he has a fixture at least if something happens to Oriola for some reason. And then Salah, Isak, Munoz, I think those are the 3 players you want to have on your bench that you want to have ready for the next few game weeks. Doesn't really matter that much for me because I am going to wildcard in Game 30. But I do have team value tied up into those 3 players, so that's why I want to have them still in my team. And now I'm about to lose my voice. I've pretty much covered everything I want to cover. So with that out of the way, I want to thank you for watching the video. See you next time as I'm choking on my words. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye-bye.